Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Podecito podcast. I am your host, Surreal469. This is the podcast that looks into one of my favorite shows, and obviously one of yours, the very underrated Las Vegas. We are on the third episode already. Time is flying by of the entire series. Donny, we hardly knew ye. This episode was written by Gardner Stern and Gary Scott Thompson. Now, Gardner Stern has written a lot, produced a lot, including this is one of 14 episodes he writes for Las Vegas. He will also go on to do Law & Order UK, The Art of More, Shark, John Doe, The Practice, Chicago Hope. So clearly he's got some accomplishments under his belt, and we all know about the great GST. This was also directed by Kevin Hooks. Kevin Hooks is an actor, director, producer. He will have directed in his time 911, The Good Cop, The Punisher, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The Night Shift, Scorpion, some Bones episodes, The Good Wife, Monk. He's got an established record too, and it's going to show in this episode. This is the third total episode of the series. Donny, we hardly knew ye. This one debuted on October 6th of 2003. This episode is a fairly straightforward episode. We follow a couple of different stories that don't intermingle with each other, but that I like that a little bit more than, so it's a little bit of a distance than what we had in the previous episode where we followed around the senator, and the King Arthur story also coincided with it. As we start off, we are at a blackjack table, and we meet one of our first guest stars. This is Wallace Langham. The actor is Wallace Langham. He will have played the role of Julian Curbis, who we will later find out is not laundering money, but he's in the middle of some nefarious scheme. He's just some kind of happy-go-lucky guy who's going to try to slide one in underneath the radar, and it's not going to work out the way he wants it to. Now, if you remember his face, you know his face, you should. He's been in a bunch of stuff. Before Las Vegas, he was on the Larry Sanders Show. After that, he was on Shameless. He's been in 911 most recently. CSI Vegas is probably his biggest one. That's probably the one that most people know him from, CSI. He was on that for a while. SVU, War Dogs, Grey's Anatomy, Draft Day, Drop Dead Diva. I know him most from, even though I later got into the Larry David show, or the Larry Sanders show, excuse me, this is Larry David show is a different show. I know him most from Veronica's Closet, or at least first from Veronica's Closet. That's where I first recognized him. But he's been in a whole bunch of stuff that you and I both know. He is here at the blackjack table. He's not having the best of times at the blackjack table, which, let's face it, that is just a Vegas experience. You just have to go through that every once in a while. And he's doing the smart thing. He lost a couple of hands and he got up from the table. That is the smart thing to do. Do not go chasing good money after bad. If you lose a hand or two, go ahead and take a break and chill out. Anyway, he's caught the attention of Danny in the surveillance room, and Danny has noticed his spending pattern. He got the $40,000 worth of chips, plays a couple hands, gets up and leaves. He's not seeming to sit and play for too long. They're thinking he might be trying to launder money. We go down to a man who's having heart issues at one of the tables, and we get to see Nessa for the first time, which is always a highlight of any and every episode that she is in. Unfortunately, she's not going to be in this episode for too long and in too many scenes, so drink her in, baby, drink her in. As she is trying to get some control over the health matter and get the table closed, Danny and Ed are coming down to the main area, the main gaming area, to figure out the health issue. Looks like it's a real health issue, so that's not going to be a long-driven story. That's sort of a red herring. Normally, these openings, everything that happens usually transpires into something else later in the episode. We're never going to see that guy again. In my headcanon, he's all right. But what we are going to see is Ed's cousin Donny. Ed's cousin Donny is a not long lost, but kind of second cousin. He's played by another very prolific character actor, Stephen Tobolowsky. You have seen him for decades in a whole bunch of stuff. His most famous role is probably Ned from Groundhog Day. But you've seen him in a whole... Can't believe I held that for that long. Lot of stuff. His first credited role was in 1977. Yes, kids, 70, almost 50 years ago. We are going all the way back. He has appeared in Alice, Falcon Crest, 227, Designing Women, Mississippi Burning, LA Law, Perry Mason, Baby Talk. Do you remember that show, Baby Talk? Ugh. Seinfeld as Tor Ekman, Thelma and Louise, Memoirs of the Invisible Man, Basic Instinct. He's been in a lot of stuff. Picket Fences, Promised Land, The Naked Truth, The Drew Carey Show, Life with Louie. I don't know if it's the first Closer, but The Closer with Tom Selleck, apparently. Another Practice alumni. Mad About You, Recess, Snoops. He was in Miss Congeniality. Most recently, he's been in Archer. Oh yeah, he was in Archer. He played Lana's husband in the later seasons. Yes, that was him. Yeah, so you've definitely seen him, or heard him at least. Animaniacs. The most recent thing as of recording, he did an episode of Hacks, the revised season of the HBO show. But he was also in Candy Cane Lane with Eddie Murphy, and I'd have to go back and rewatch that. I don't rightly remember him. The Loud House, Lopez versus Lopez, the Goldbergs. You've seen him. He plays a sort of half-wit cousin of Ed's, which Ed is welcoming and open to this cousin because he's family. This shows Ed's sort of personality. Donny is family. He will get special treatment, but he will also get courteous treatment. He'll get stuff paid for. He'll get the treatment. He knows who Donny is. He's not just some long-lost cousin. He does remember Donny from a couple decades ago when it was like a family reunion or whatever. And early on, you can kind of see that he's really kind of remembering why he didn't want to be around Donny all that often. Just because Donny's kind of he's a basic guy. He's just affable, nice, but just a very basic guy that you just wouldn't want to have more than like 5 minutes conversation with. And in walks Donny's now fiancée, Marie. First off, the actress plays this role perfectly, especially once we get later into the episode and we figure out Marie's story. She is played by Bess Meyer. Now, Bess Meyer has been in a whole lot of stuff as well, especially in the 90s. Like she was around a lot in the 90s. Her first credited role was One More Saturday Night, but she also appeared in Heathers. She was a female stoner in Heathers. She was in Saved by the Bell as Vicky in 1989, The Substitute. I don't remember Vicky in 1989. I thought she might have been the other girl, but that's not her. Anyway, she was also in Doogie Howser. She was also in Picket Fences. That's interesting. She was in Party of Five, George and Leo, Brothers Keeper. She did an episode of Friends, Will and Grace, Trouble with Normal, State of Grace, this episode of Las Vegas, obviously, Jake in Progress, which was an underrated show, Bones. Her more recent, actually, this is interesting. Her most recent credit was in Ned and Stacy in 2017, which I think was really just kind of like for the DVD set. There wasn't a new season of Ned and Stacy, and that's it. That's her last credit as an actress. I don't know what happened to Bess Meyer. That's her last credit as an actress. The Ned and Stacy DVD box set of 2017. Before that, of actually doing something, was on an episode of Without a Trace in 2009. So that's interesting because she is really good in this role. She is terrific. You don't see the twist of her coming. She seems, from the time she gets on camera, she seems like she fits so well in with Donny. Again, another very nice, very affable person that if you met them at a party, they would be a nice person to talk to for about a drink. If you're in the very suburban type of frame of mind, you might do the dinner party with them, with other couples, the kind of person that thinks everything is so fun, but you don't, like, that's her personality. But as you continue to watch this, and you watch her acting while everyone else is talking, she's really good. She is very, very good. We'll get to that in a minute. We get to see Danny come out to the pool area, which is just littered with just tremendously in shape people. Like all of the casting directors brought all their extras into this area. He is walking to the pool area while talking to Sam. He's trying to get her to talk to Julian Curbis to try to figure out his story because of all the money that's involved, but he's not spending it, and they're trying to figure out what is going on with Mr. Curbis. In the meantime, Danny is called to talk to Delinda, and of course, Sam has to be her snarky Sam self and talk about how intellectually not mature Delinda is, how flighty she is, how we probably aren't going to get anything from her. Here is one of the first, and I forgot to mention music. It's a major part of the show. Obviously, there are a few different ways to watch Las Vegas. If you don't know, you can watch it on Peacock, you can watch the DVD sets, and you can, if you still manage to have some that originally aired version, that is always the best version. Now, in putting together this podcast, I get my information from a whole bunch of different places, including the Wayback Machine, trying to go back to the old Las Vegas-theseries.com forums that are still available and finding some information. Of course, we find different music that's available as well. Now, watching on the DVD version, the opening music that we get at the blackjack table is a song called Frida Hollow, a.k.a. Mamacita, by the Latin Soul Syndicate. That's on the DVD version. On the Peacock version, it's just some random production song. Apparently, when this originally aired, according to Las Vegas-theseries.com forums, the original intro song was Soul Sauce by Cal Tjader, Tjader. Now, I say all that because we're coming to the pool area. When we come to the pool area, we hear another song, and that song is on all the versions. Whether you're watching on Peacock, the DVD, or the original version, it's Are You Gonna Be My Girl by Jet, which was a song that, not gonna lie, was kind of everywhere at the time for a while. Any commercial that had a girl in it played it. It was in a lot of different. It was mostly a commercial song, but it was a pretty good song. It was a good song. If you didn't get sick of it, it was probably on a lot of people's rotations. So from the very beginning, when Delinda is talking to Danny, you can tell that something's different because she asks, "Great day, huh?" And she's not talking about the day. Delinda's not talking about how nice a day it is. She's gonna drop the hammer down on Danny. In this canopy she's stripping off. Obviously you can't see anything, DVD or the Peacock version, and Danny is apoplectic.
Look, if this is about that monorail thing, I told you that...
Don't get defensive, Danny.
He is realizing that at this point, this might be the last time he's ever gonna see her naked. And then she says,
We can still be friends.
Definitely the last time.
folks, we are 3 episodes in, and I am about to get on my shipper soapbox again. Danny and Delinda was meant for this length of episodes. Really, it was meant for 2 episodes. It wasn't even meant for that long, if we're being perfectly honest. But we had the Greg storyline, so we didn't do the breakup with the Greg storyline at the same time. It should not have even gone the 3 episodes. It should have really gone 2. Had the Greg issue not come up, it would have been 2. They were not meant for the long term. They were not meant to be endgame. And you could see, even here, no one believes in Danny and Delinda. None of the characters believe it. I don't think the writers believe it. I don't think GST believes in it. Molly Sims doesn't believe in it. Josh Duhamel doesn't believe in it. No one believes in Danny and Delinda. Oh, they were together in the first... Kids. No one believes this. No one believes this. No one believes in them. And that should be it. That should be the end of the discussion, but it won't be. We'll talk about it a lot more as the series regresses. Meanwhile, Mr. Curbis is in the gift shop looking at t-shirts, and Sam is swooping in to talk to him. Now, again, music is a very important thing here. On the Peacock and the DVD versions, both are production music. Neither is the same song, though. It's another one of those weird things where music rights, even for production music, doesn't go through for streaming, and I don't understand that. Meanwhile, Mr. Kurbis, I think initially thought that Sam was trying to flirt with him, or at least was trying to be a little bit charming, and then realized that Sam was trying to get some information from him. And he is playing it very close to the vest, but still you could sense the nervousness on him. And this is Wallace Langham's strength. Wallace Langham, in pretty much anything he's in, plays the nervous guy. But he plays a relatable, average nervous guy. He plays not a caricature of a nervous guy. He just plays, like he's the guy you press to get some information, right? In almost everything. Or he's the guy that, like, you could have an explosion happen or a big chase scene or something happen, and he'll give you the line at the end, the kind of button line that you could sense the apprehension, the fear, the anxiety on his face and his actions. And that's where he shines. And he shines like that really here, very subtly, more than I've seen at this point in 2003 in some of the other roles that I've seen him in. He plays that really well. Sam, meanwhile, very immediately calls Ed. He gives him the skinny on Mr. Kurbis and tells him where Kurbis is going. Kurbis said that he was going to a meeting at the Luxor, but he ain't going to the Luxor. He's going back upstairs. Meanwhile, Danny goes down to the valet to talk to Mike and give Mike the skinny on what's going on with him and Delinda. But this actually will play into the episode a little bit later. Immediately we see Mr. Maloof, and Mr. Maloof gives Mike a $100 bill as a tip when he goes in. Danny asks,
How much did he just tip you?
C-note goes up if he starts winning.
and that plays into later. Mike checks the $100 bill, he opens it, sees it, puts it back in his pocket. That plays into the episode later. Keep that in mind. Meanwhile, the rapport here between Mike and Danny is just, come on. Like they're the two aces, man. You get the buddy cop energy, not even buddy cop, but the buddy energy from these guys shines through in every scene that they're in, even this early in the series. There are 3 episodes. They were the last episode it showed. It shows here. It's going to show a lot more later. And with the genre that this show is in, it really only fits later when they start doing more of this and the focus starts going more towards these two solving the crime of the week. Danny is called up to Ed's office, and Ed is about to go to Donnie's wedding. And Ed is looking for a little bit more information on Mr. Kurbis. And Danny has to give Ed the news that Delinda dumped him.
A wedding. Not yours.
I don't think you have to worry about that.
She dumped you.
Like yesterday's newspaper.
And Ed is not shocked whatsoever.
I'm gonna sit down for a minute. I mean, what the hell do you expect? Walking hand in hand on the beach with thousands of violins playing. Long talks about growing old together.
Ed is another, again, the characters don't believe in this quote-unquote relationship either. I don't think Danny really believed in this relationship. He was trying to convince himself through the narration as he was walking to the pool that he doesn't believe in the relationship with Delinda.
Our relationship has matured. Initially, I'll admit it was pretty much all physical, but now... Oh, thank you, God.
And neither did Ed. But Ed gives Danny some comforting words. He's like, I knew that you guys weren't going to be growing old together and walking in the park. Oh, really, Ed? Oh, really? Guess what? None of us did either. Let's let the dealer shuffle the deck for a second and we'll be right back.
Yeah, this shit's a whole vibe, and this bitch the whole night. They be playing both sides, no trust in them, and I stay by my bro side. Can't fuck with the whole tide, we be with the whole squad. Can't let them win. Yeah, this shit's a whole vibe.
You're listening to Whole Vibe from Jesse Evans's album Space Jam. If you like what you're hearing, you want to hear more, hear it again, or both, just go to tinyurl.com/EvansVibe. That's tinyurl.com/EVANSVIBE.
I'm back on my bullshit. No mic, but I'm shooting and I'm back with a full clip. Pay attention to the flows I'm delivering. Cut off of my bros to my hoes.
Anyway, Ed relays that he's going to his cousin Donny's wedding. Now Mary is finding Danny in the casino floor. Danny is trying to get some information on Mr. Curbis. He's kind of just stalking and watching him as Mary passes. Again, take a good long look at Mary. We're not going to see her again the rest of the episode, which is another sin and a shame. I don't think they really knew yet what they were going to do with her in this episode. Just look at Nikki Cox. Come on. How's Nikki Cox in this episode for all of 20 seconds? Oh, it's a crime. It's a crime. Anyway, the episode's still good. As Danny is looking down the casino floor, he's trying to get some audio. He's trying to hear some different audio. This is another gadget. This gadget, again, looks better than the gadget that we had before. In that first episode, this almost looks like a real sonic device. I don't know that I've ever seen anything like that, but it almost looks like a real sonic device. We get more production music here. I think originally this was supposed to be a Mel Torme song, I think. But on the DVD version and the Peacock version, it's just the same production song. Anyway, here, through the audio, we see Lois for the first time. She's only in this episode, but we see her a couple of times in this episode. Lois Blatz is played by Kelly Rebecca Walsh. Now, Kelly Rebecca Walsh, you have seen her in not a whole lot of stuff, actually. Her first credited role was in a video called Shooting Star. She was Temptress number 2 in 1993. She was then in Daddy Girls, the TV show, in 1994. Tracy Takes On, Everybody Loves Raymond, Grounded for Life, Law and Order SVU 4 years later, and then the last credited role was in Shithead and the Believer, which was a short. I guess this was a dog comedy, and Rusty Camel. And that was the last we heard of credited roles for Kelly Rebecca Walsh. She's good in this role. Again, she's good in this role. That's a shame. She's good in this role. She did some writing, including Shithead and the Believer. She wrote that short. She did some directing. Again, Shithead and the Believer. I guess it was a self-done project. She's good in this role as Lois. She's good in this role. And she immediately sees Danny and realizes, oh, she's caught. She's a hooker, don't you know? And as we touched on earlier in the first episode of the series, hooking is not legal in Clark County, which is where the Strip is in Las Vegas. You can, in fact, engage in prostitution and or rent a prostitute for an allotted amount of time in Nevada, just not Clark County, just not where the Strip is, not legally where the Strip is. And Lois has to try to get away, but I think Danny has a plan. Meanwhile, this is another thing. Las Vegas is just dripping with sex. As he's trying to stalk Lois as he's trying to track Lois down by the woman's room, because that's where she's going to try to make her quick getaway, Danny is propositioned by some random woman who walks out.
Hi. You always hang out by the ladies' room?
I'm waiting for one of my friends.
Maybe later. I'm in 2608.
Why? Because we have to understand that Danny is the sexiest of all the male sex symbols on this show, even as he's getting dumped by Molly Sims. It's really just a self-insert here at this point from the writers. But he propositions Lois. He tells Lois, not that way, you sickos. He propositions Lois to try to help him find out information on Mr. Curbis. He is trying to find out what Mr. Curbis is doing with that money. And so he is going to try to get Lois to get Mr. Curbis to take her to his room, and then that way he can do what he's about to do in this next scene.
Security!
Is there some problem?
One of our people reported seeing her coming up here with a known prostitute.
This will get him access to the room and try to put a little pressure on Curtis. Curtis is now seen in his Montecito shirt. He's got all the swag now. He's in the Montecito shirt that he was given by Sam, where he showed a little charm. We see Lois putting her clothes back on in a mirror. And here we hear another random production song in the background. And that's the last we see of Lois as she is, quote unquote, sent to talk to security. But Mr. Curtis spills his guts. He lets Danny know that he is here to buy a Ferrari at the Ferrari convention, which has been set up earlier in the episode. He is going to buy it for much less than market value, which of course means that it is stolen. So now it's a much bigger issue. We've got not only a deal for the car on Montecito property, so now Danny's got to figure out what he's going to do with Mr. Curtis. Meanwhile, Ed is doing what he planned to do with Donny and Marie. He is taking them to their wedding. They're getting married at the wedding chapel on the Strip. Again, music is a big part of this episode, is a big part of this show. There are a few different songs that play during this scene. The DVD version has Blues Town by Rick Vito playing as the big white limo Hummer comes into the wedding chapel. The Peacock version has All Tied Up by Christopher Deschamps. I'm going to say Deschamps. And Eric Starkson. Starczan. Music rights. There's really got to be a unification thing for this. Like, both songs are good, though. Here's what I'll say. This is actually a instance where the production music change isn't bad. Like, they're both actually really good songs. I like them both. It's strange that there has to be two different songs, and the original version appears to have been the Bluestown song, but by Bandbox Boogie was the original version, according to Las Vegas-theseries.com forums, at least the original version. You have to go in the Wayback Machine for that. But that's it. Again, great songs. Like, I would like to hear them all. I'll probably be adding them to my Las Vegas playlist, but, do we need that many good? I mean, you can never have too many good songs, but it's just an interesting conundrum with the music rights and stuff. It's hard to wrap my mind around. Anyway, they get to the wedding chapel, and it is all 60s themed. Donny and Marie are not dressed as Donny and Marie, they're dressed as hippies. Ed is dressed as Ed. They get to the chapel, and they meet the receptionist, and Jimi Hendrix is going to be presiding over their wedding. Meanwhile, while Marie goes to powder her nose, Donny and Ed have a conversation, and Ed gets a little bit of background on Donny. Donny hasn't been the most successful in love.
I never thought anyone would marry me. No, I asked a girl once. She thought it was a joke, actually started laughing. But she wasn't in Marie's league. I mean, not even in her solar system.
And that's a situation that, again, we'll come to a little bit later when we hear a little bit more about Marie. But that's a situation that really kind of softens Ed to Donny. Donny is in love, and Ed can see that Donny is in love. Ed, for all his gruffness, for all his cynicism, for all that he's seen and all he's been through, you can see in this moment where he's connecting with his distant cousin, where he's like, all right, I'm going to be happy for you. Even though it was a quick Vegas kind of love story, I'm going to be happy for you in this moment, Donny. I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to be happy for you. You have a blood relation here for you. I'm going to stand up for you, Donny. They have the wedding. They come back to the casino. And that's about all Ed can take of Donny and Marie at this point. Even though he's going to be there for the lovebirds, he's only going to be there for the lovebirds as far as he has to be. He is pawning them off on Sam as soon as he sees this poor girl in the casino to get her involved, because he doesn't want to have to deal with him. He's got other stuff to do, and more importantly, he just really doesn't want to be involved. And again, as you're watching this, watch Marie. Marie doesn't have a whole lot to say in these scenes, but look at her facial expressions. Look at her playing with her wig, her 60s wig. Look at her looking at Donny, the way that she cuddles with them, the reactions to everything. She's really good in this role. You believe that the actress and that Marie believe what they're doing. You believe that they are this person. In that moment, you believe that. In that moment. As we move on, Danny and Ed are talking about the Mr. Kerber situation. Ed wants Kerbis out of the casino. Ed doesn't want this purchase to take place at the Ferrari convention on Montecito ground with Montecito chips. He doesn't want this to happen. He doesn't want it to go down. He's saying to call the cops. Danny, because he put the situation together by using Lois, he feels compelled to help Kerbis out. And one thing I like about this scene is that it highlights the not absurdity, but the not real aspect of the fact that occasionally, a lot of the time, the team takes liberties with these stories. They do what they would not do in real life. In real life, this would have been sent off to Vegas Metro a long time ago. But I like the fact that they at least mention it and they at least say, listen, we're going to take a liberty here because they don't say we're going to take a liberty here because it's a TV show. But they say, listen, we're going to take a liberty here. We're going to do something out of the ordinary. Don't try to go to Vegas and buy a stolen car with chips and think you're going to get saved by the security staff. You're probably not. They're probably going to report you. You're probably going to go to jail. Delinda comes up almost immediately. Delinda and Ed start talking at least a little bit about the relationship. Delinda says, Danny wasn't right for me. Great. And they start moving on because Delinda wants to find a job. Delinda wants to find a job. Ed wants her to find a job. Well, Ed wants her to go to a convent.
Joining a convent's a great idea.
But he's willing to have her look for a job. Something to stabilize this girl. Something to get her, focused on something. Good start. We'll see that a little bit later. Meanwhile, Danny is in Belisara, pretending to be Mr. Kerbis to buy the car. And in walks the fence, the original thief. In walks Steven. That's the character's name, Steven. The actor's name is Bodie Elfman. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it should, because his uncle is Danny Elfman, the guy who did all the music for The Simpsons and the Tim Burton movies, and his aunt is Bridget Fonda, and his wife is Jenna Elfman. So he's not nobody. He's at least got people in the business, even if you don't necessarily recognize his name. Also, you've seen his face and stuff. You've seen his face in a bunch of stuff. His first credited role was in Life Goes On in 1991. He did a couple episodes of that. He was in Melrose Place. He was in Step Monster. He was in Sisters. Again, another person who was in Sisters. He was in Married with Children for an episode. He did Step by Step for 3 episodes. He did Ellen. He did The Faculty. He did Hang Time. Really? He did a Very Brady sequel. Hang Time. That's an interesting one. TNBC show. He did a couple episodes of Third Rock from the Sun, another George and Leo alum. He did an episode of Sliders. He was in the Godzilla movie. He was in Party of Five. The Godzilla 1998 movie. I keep forgetting there are other Godzilla movies. The one with Matthew Broderick. Anyway, he was in Gone in 60 Seconds. Memories of that movie. Almost Famous. Dharma and Greg. Obviously, he was in 3 episodes as 3 different people. He was in ER, Las Vegas, obviously. Charmed, Funky Monkey, CSI, another CSI alum. He was in, most recently, Mosquito in 2022. Before that, Electromagnetic. The last big thing that you've probably seen him in was he was in Rizzolian Isles for an episode, but he did 6 episodes of Criminal Minds as Peter Lewis. So you've seen him a few times in a few different places. His energy as soon as he walks in is that of somebody who's up to some shady shenanigans. Easily. He is not, there's no subtlety in his role at all. He knows he is playing somebody doing shady stuff. Danny slips him the cash, or at least some of the cash, so he can check it to make sure it's real. And now Danny is starting to get into his sort of tactical training type gimmick where doing things that Curbis wouldn't have been able to do. At this point, Curbis probably actually would have been played for his money, because Curbis probably would have bowed to the pressure because Steven flashes a gun at him, tells him, listen, we're going to do this my way or no way at all.
The rest.
First, I gotta see it.
No. I told you on the phone. You give me the cash, I give you the keys. No kick in the tire, no cooling off period. Done deal. You do not want to piss me off, Mr. Curbis.
All I want you to do is walk with me to the car so I know it's real, just like the cash.
And Danny is calm, cool, and collected enough and knowledgeable enough to know that realistically, this guy isn't going to shoot him in public, in front of mirrors, or in front of cameras, rather, and all these witnesses in broad daylight and all this other stuff.
I gotta make sure it runs. What are you gonna do, shoot me and take the money with everyone watching? You won't make it past the fountain.
He breaks it down. He realizes that, and also he's been in way worse situations than this. This guy's a vet. He was in some really bad stuff and will be later in the series, but he is not pressed by this at all. He knows that this guy realistically is no more than a thug, a 2-bit thug, and he's playing it as a 2-bit thug. The suit's ill-fitting, everything. Like, nothing about this guy is pressing Danny in terms of his danger, right? And he wants to draw this out because he wants to get Las Vegas PD involved. He slips Mike a bill. Mike doesn't look at it. Instead, Mike takes it and realizes something is going on, and so he moves some cars around for him so that they can get the cars out of the lot. We will see Mike a little bit later. Again, Ed meets Donnie, and immediately I am looking at Marie, and I am looking at the acting job she's doing as Donnie and Ed are doing the majority of the talking. She is acting. The acting is not just reciting lines. Acting is doing what your character would naturally do when you don't think the cameras are watching you, but they're always watching you. And she is, the way even she sips the drink is just disarming, and you believe that she fits with Donnie. You believe that she is this character. You believe that she is this role. Meanwhile, Donnie sends Marie up to get a couple $1,000, $30,000 or so, but he is warned against sending her for an errand like that. Sam escorts her upstairs. He takes a break from the blackjack table, and he again talks to Ed. You can see Ed has softened up. Ed's like,
How about I buy you breakfast? No. How about you buy me breakfast?
Let's do that, because, Marie, she's always sleeping late.
Great. Well, look, I got a place they serve the best pancakes you've ever had.
he's fallen for Donnie's charm. Donnie's so charming. He has charmed Ed into being soft and saying, I'm going to take you out for breakfast in the morning before you leave. He's not completely disregarding his cousin. He's his cousin. He likes the guy enough. The guy's affable enough. The guy's nice enough. It's like, listen, I'm gonna do you a solid. Let's go get some breakfast later on. All right. Delinda meets up with Ed again. They talk again about her finding a job. She's thinking of doing something in the restaurant business because.
Yeah, sure. You went to that cooking school in Europe.
It was a 2-day chocolate retreat in St. Moritz.
Which is such a Delinda way of thinking. It is such a Delinda way of thinking.
Why don't you take a little break?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm gonna stretch the legs, wash the face, refocus.
There you go.
You're listening to Rainy Days Don't Get Me Down by Anthony Njoku. If you like what you're hearing, want to hear it again, hear more, or both, just go to tinyurl.com/anjoku. That's tinyurl.com/anjoku. All this happens in the span of a couple of seconds, and Marie and Sam come back down with the money, and there's the USC marching band And Marie suddenly says, I gotta see them, as they play through the crowd. Couple things here. First, obviously, we gotta talk about the music. The original airing, as well as the DVD, the USC Marching Band is playing Got My Mind Set on You by George Harrison. The way I connected with this song, as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh, Weird Al. Because Weird Al did a parody of Got My Mind Set on You from one of his, I think it was the album just before Bad Hair Day, where instead of Got My Mind Set on You, his version was, this song is just 6 words long. This song is just 6 words long. This song is just 6 words long. And that's what I heard. And it wasn't until later I even heard the George Harrison song, which, not a great song. The Weird Al song is way better. So in my mind, I believe they're playing the Weird Al song. This song is just 6 words long, but of course, it's credited to George Harrison as I Got My Mind Set on You. They're playing that in the DVD and the original airing version. On the Peacock version, they are playing some random song. Just some rando song. And I get it. This time, rights issues make a little bit more sense, but God, come on, guys. We got to do better than this. Either way, it's not that important. The most important part is that Marie darts off. Now, when you're watching this for the first time, you got to think to yourself, oh, that's a little weird, right? Like, I don't care how naive or innocent or how optimistic you are, the way you look at the world, and even as you followed Marie through this episode, even if you watched the way that the actress acts while everyone else is talking, the mannerisms, all that stuff, that's a weird thing to do. No one just darts off like that over the age of 7. Okay? Oh, I gotta see him. No, you're taking off. You're taking off. And Sam immediately starts looking for her, and she's gone. And Sam kind of is like, oh no. Meanwhile, this is all happening very fast. The show is ramping up here. Danny and Steven are driving the car. He's actually trying to set up a trap. As they go over an overpass, the cops are going to be waiting for them on the other side, but Steven has other plans. He doesn't necessarily see the cops, so he's tired of playing this game. And he tells Danny to turn around. We immediately go back to Sam in the surveillance room with Ed looking over the footage of Marie hopping in the cab with the cash. And Ed's disappointed. He's not mad. He's disappointed. Sam is disappointed. Everybody's disappointed.
I mean, that poor Putz, he was really crazy about it. I really thought this was going to be a Vegas love story.
He believed it. Didn't you believe it? I believe. I've seen this episode more times than I care to count, and every time we get to this point, I'm like, that's a shame. That's a shame because they've set it up really well. You feel for Donny, you believe Bess as Marie, you believe Marie as Marie. So you have the actress Bess Meyer playing Marie Kaminsky, who's playing a character of Donny's Marie. You've got a couple of different layers of actingception, and she plays all of it very, very well. Like, probably better than should be allowed on network television in 2003, but she plays it very well. Meanwhile, Danny and Steven make their way to a parking lot. Steven is like, I'm done with this deal. I'm done with your shenanigans. I'm just taking the car. And probably the cash. Definitely the cash, because the cash is in the car. He's had it with this deal, and he, I think, wasn't going to initially do the deal in the first place. The whole point was just to have the car and the cash. But Mike followed them in Danny's car, and now they're chasing Steven through the city of Las Vegas over this car, all because Mike read the note. See? Everything comes back to the start of the episode. Mike was actually paying attention. And so now they're chasing Steven through the streets of Las Vegas, and Steven hops a fence into a pool, but they find Steven, they find the money, and all is well in terms of the car. This is another cool Ed moment. Ed feels for Donnie so much. Ed likes Donnie enough that Ed is going to take out the $30,000 of his own cash, his own personal cash, from the casino, and he's going to give it to Donnie because he doesn't want Donnie to think anything happened. He's going to try to find Marie first. He's going to try to fix stuff before Donnie knows anything happened. He's going to protect Donnie from the truth of the situation that Donnie doesn't even know that he's in, but he is. So he gives Donnie the cash as Donnie is looking for Marie. He tells Donnie that Marie is off to get a facial or something. And again, Donnie's a nice enough guy. He's like, whatever she wants, I'm happy for it. You know, good for her. I love her and all. Donnie is a good guy. Donnie's a good guy. You feel for Donnie. Donnie's a good guy. You know, two other good guys, Mike and Danny. This is the other part I was talking about. We were talking about the camaraderie. When I was talking about the chemistry between these two, this is that chemistry. They're sitting in Belisara eating burgers and fries and having a beer, drying off after they spent basically the day in the pool. It's a great scene. They're celebrating their victory. And it's two buddies. It's fantastic, this scene. Now, again, gotta talk about music. Production music on both of them. The DVD and the Peacock version, probably gonna be production music at some point in the original airing too. There are a couple songs that are listed for the original airing that I don't think make it into the actual DVD or Peacock versions. So they may have literally just been from the original airing. Anyway, regardless of that, not only do you see the rapport between these guys just in their actions, but in their words, how they talk to each other. They're talking about dating, what they do when they date. Mike's talking about,
when I start dating a girl, know what I do? Whatever she wants. Sunrise hike in the mountains? Sounds good. Antique shopping? Let's go. I establish rapport.
It sounds like guy code for ass kiss to me.
Which it kind of is. But I just love the chemistry between Mike and Danny. It's just fantastic. Now, an underrated bit of chemistry is the chemistry between Sam and Ed. Sam finds Marie. And Marie is sitting in Ed's office and she's getting grilled. And you can see that Marie is caught. And Marie knows that she's caught. And she's not playing it tough or anything. She's still trying to keep the ruse up. She's still trying to play the part, even though she's clearly got a jacket. She's clearly got a rap sheet. Ed is threatening to call a probation officer. But the rapport between Ed and Sam, because Sam has seen a lot. And Sam is cold as ice when she needs to be. Most of the time when she wants to be. And you can see her enjoying watching Ed twist the knife. As far as Marie's situation. She is watching Ed work. And she is loving to watch Ed. And Ed, the way Ed works, he's not bombastic in this moment. He's not harsh in this moment. He's very calm. You know, he talks about how...
Here's what is going to happen. You will go down to the casino, find your husband, and then you will tell him about the lovely massage you had and how very happy you are to be married to him. And tomorrow you will go back to Trenton, where you will stay married to him for at least, what do you think?
Year.
For at least a year. You will be a loving and devoted wife. You will offer him moral support, conjugal comfort, and you'll laugh at all his jokes. I'll be calling every week to check. Now, the only way you're relieved of this obligation is if Donnie so chooses.
And Marie, for her benefit, she wants to con her way out of this, but she knows that she can't. Ed's got her. Ed's got her dead to rights. Ed's got her dead to rights. He's got video footage of her sizing Donnie up. He's got her dead to rights. And she's put on poor thing. She's still, to the end, puts on a puppy dog face. Like, oh, please. Like, that probably has gotten the character Marie out of trouble so many times that helped facilitate her getting into trouble in the first place. And here she is in this instance where she will have to be this guy's wife. And she doesn't want to be. she just wanted her score. She just wanted her $30K. And that would be the end of it. Nope. Ed drags her back down to the casino floor with Donny, and now you're seeing the cracks. Now the way Marie acts around Donny, you can see the cracks, a couple of different eye rolls, and she's not. She thought she was done playing the role, and now she's got to go back playing the role and putting the smile back on, and it's not the same. Bess is such a good actress in this, because that same smile 5 minutes ago looked like it was the most natural thing for this woman to have on her face when she was around this guy. And now it looks like it's the most uncomfortable thing for her to have on her face while she's around this guy. Incredible. Good, just hats off to Bess Meyer on that. She acted the hell out of this role. Meanwhile, Ed runs into Danny. Danny runs into Mike. Mike runs into Kerbis, and Kerbis is free to go. He's got a free play card somehow.
Should I turn this in?
Use it. It's a free play card. You won.
I did. But nothing's coming out. What did I win? I won a car? I won a car!
The whole purpose of him going was to get a car in the first place, and he wins a car. Now, mind you, this car looks like it's a Chevy, so it's certainly not a Ferrari. But he wins a car anyway, without actually having to pay the $30,000. He wins a car anyway. This is what I'm talking about with this show, Las Vegas. This is why this show has the connection that it does with a lot of people, and myself included, where you really do feel the possibilities. It's a strange thing, you know, as cynical as I am and as much TV as I've watched and as much as I know about the Hollywood magic part of it and all this other stuff, there's something about this show and moments like this that they put in it that make you feel like you could really change your life in Vegas. That draws and drew a lot of people to Vegas, where they thought they could change their lives in Vegas. It usually doesn't work out. But you see that in moments like these on this show, where this guy, this nice enough guy who kind of thought he was going to get one over, but isn't a bad guy. He just gave himself enough plausible deniability to end up in a bad situation that could have been incredibly terrible. But because he lucked onto this, the luckiest of all casinos, with the nicest of all the staff, because there's no staff in any casino that's going to do any of this for anybody. But he just happened to luck into this magical place. And not only did they save him, which was magic enough, but he ends up winning a car anyway, which is more magic. This show, man. This show. So we fast forward to the next morning, and it's Donny and Ed sitting in the place where Ed told Donny he would bring him for breakfast, the best pancakes in Vegas. It's the Topless Pancake Bar, which apparently is based on a real place that existed. I don't think it exists anymore. I don't think it existed when I went to Vegas the first time, which was a couple years after this. It feels like it was a myth. If it did exist, it didn't exist for too long. Music is a very important part of this. On the DVD section, it's Throw Caution to the Wind that plays by Ronnie Gesser on the DVD version. On the Peacock version, it's a random production song. The best thing that came up was Aussie Christmas Medley, but that was not it. It was some random production song on the Peacock version. I'm not sure what played in the original airing. I wasn't able to find an original airing copy of this episode through completely legal channels. There's no shenanigans here. FCC or NBC, please don't sue me. Donny breaks down to Ed.
We got the marriage annulled.
Whose decision was that?
We went to the courthouse yesterday afternoon, and I was trying to think of the right time to tell you because I felt so bad because you had done so much for us.
Don't worry about it.
So it does still end up being a happy ending for Donny and even Marie, He says that he might end up seeing her later, probably not, but he got caught up in the Vegas magic. And Donny still manages to make it out pretty decently. Donny still manages to make it out without a scratch, $30,000 richer, connected with his cousin again. Donny ends up being kind of the big winner in this episode. Donny, we hardly knew you, but you ended up winning this episode, Donny, and my hat's off to you. This episode was a good episode. It's not a weak episode of Las Vegas, but there are stronger episodes, and the next episode is going to be stronger. I really like the next episode. Is one of my favorites. I love the next episode, but this one is really good with some really good performances. Again, the MVP of this episode, in my opinion, is Bess Meyer. Bess Meyer played a couple of different roles at the same time. Every time she was on screen, she did probably the best acting in terms of not what most people think of acting. Like if you've ever been on stage, if you've ever been in kind of decent enough size production or been good at a production, even if it was a terrible size production, you know that kind of side work, that kind of always knowing that the red light is on and so you're always in characterness is so good and so underrated. And what she does with all that really makes you believe it. It plays so natural. And her chemistry with Steven Tobolowsky, so good. It's very good. She's the MVP of this whole episode, in my personal opinion. But there's really not a weak performance in this bunch. This is great. This is a great episode. It's not one of the better episodes only because the quality of the episodes increase. So that's how, again, this is another thing I love about this show. It's not a matter of this episode is bad. It's a matter of there are other episodes that somehow expand and even get better than what we just witnessed. Folks, I appreciate you coming through another episode of the Podecito with me. If you want to follow and or support the show, I appreciate that. You can find us on Twitter at The Podecito, on Twitter, as well as you can help support the show. Cash App, Venmo, it's Surreal469 on both of those. That would be me, your congenial host, Surreal469, SURREAL, the number is 469. Tag Podecito or Las Vegas or LV, and I will know what you are trying to support. Because I'm everywhere. I'm Surreal469 on all sorts of things. I have another podcast with my friend Trey called the How Do We Even Get Here podcast. And so I'm trying to build sort of my own Podecito empire here so that I can go to Vegas and actually afford to go this time and maybe have some of that Las Vegas magic rub off on me. In the meantime, folks, I appreciate you coming along with me. Next time, we'll be looking at episode 4 of our favorite show, Las Vegas. This episode is going to be Jokers and Fools. It is a very Nessa-centric episode, and because of that, it is one of my favorites, and I think we will break down why it's one of my favorites, and I think we'll probably understand why it's one of yours, too, once we actually start looking into it. Folks, that's going to do it for me. Until next time, I appreciate you. See you next time.